Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, beautiful, true of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church, and where we do something. This is Tom Caffrey with my co-host Dan Duddy, the co-host of Dan Duddy. How you doing, Dan? Well, I know how you're doing.
Quite well.
No, you're not.
Physical schmisical. It's nothing.
Okay.
It's hard to say when you're not feeling well. Schmisical.
I know. Well, you're going to attend to this soon, so
I will, Dad.
That'll be.
I promise.
That great quote, while it has been attributed to the Irish British member of Parliament Edmund Burke, a man who was fully behind the American Revolution and horrified at the French Revolution. But that quote was attributed to him, but actually it turns out it wasn't. But the theme and the context and everything like that is apropos. And I was looking at this is another well-known quote. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. In a religious context, we'd say that God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. What are we talking about, Danny?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good opening. Gets me fired up. Well, what spurred this was from personal friendship and what was put right on our plate as men. The opening ceremony to the Olympics, and what many of us are aware of was the mockery of the Last Supper, so broadly put out there to the world, under the, I guess Tom would just say, under their premise, which I think is bull, to be frank, of artistry, and having to do with a mythological god. I'll mispronounce his name is Dionysus, I think.
Okay, buddy. Yep.
Was I good?
That's good. What's one of two? Some people say Isis, some people say Isis. You're on.
Okay, there you go. And how it gave an opportunity for the LGBTQ community worldwide to get some level of validation from the eyes of the world, and I'm holding up my quotation marks as the world as it belongs to the fallen angels, to reenact what they say was this feast, mythological feast, which you'll dig into more for me. But it was a complete reenactment, no doubt about it, and mockery of the Eucharist, of the Last Supper. But what happened with Tom, what Tom is bringing up, folks, you that are listening, is that very good friend of ours and oftentimes guest on our radio show, Father Jim Hutchins, put out a charge to 52 men, happened to be 52 on an email, stating we can't stand for this and that we need the voice that Tom is alluding to here. And then he also put into that charge a really, not a long letter, but a letter that was so well done and succinctly right to the point that we got to fight this. The contact information to a couple of different factions of the Olympic people. Well, for example, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee,
right,
to flex our voice as Catholic Christians. And one of them, 52 men. I'm going to boldly say one of the 52 was a boy, and
yeah, right.
and replied back that, like, in mockery of Father Jim, I must say, for taking this stance that he was mocking out the push to charge. He said, "I'm all for praying, and who isn't all for praying and get into the silence and praying for these people, but this is a waste of time.
Colossal.
Thank you. A colossal waste of time. Colossal. What is colossal in such evil, deep ways is what we're looking at. And as Tom reminded me, we have a closing ceremony coming up too. And that's just making, I'll guess 50 of the 52 men or 50 of the 51 men pace, wondering what this is going to be. But what spurred us, Tom and I, and it was really cool how we all got Father Jim's back, and you're the one that really launched that, is how one guy could not just walk away in silence. He also had to climb in as boldly as that gosh darn opening ceremony, call himself a Catholic Christian, and mock us for wanting to swing our fists and fight this thing. That's a problem. And if there's one, there are millions. Well, my problem, this is what I see. There's cracks in the church. We all know there's been cracks in the church. The LGBTQ community is always banging on the door to create cracks. And our church has cracked. And just the slightest bit of that light is all that is needed. But when one guy comes forward like that, and I'm glad he did, because it's a revelation that there are many more, and says what he says, all the more reason that we need to really stand up and make ourselves known as the lay men, with our authentic masculinity that is created into us, to really fight this fight and go down swinging. And in the end, go eye to eye with Jesus Christ our Lord and say, how did I do? And, be panting and be exhausted and have sweat on our brow. And I know he's going to say, well done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said. And I was, as I had shared with you in an email, a private message, that I was startled by that response. And I would hope that every other man on that email list was startled by that. I don't know, because only, 5 or so have responded in solidarity. I felt, as I told you, I felt badly for Father Jim.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been expecting that. And I just, this guy didn't think that it was going to do any good to speak up.
A colossal waste of time.
Yeah, colossal waste of time. They're not gonna. What kind of response do you think we're going to get? And we're not doing it. We're not. Our primary reason for speaking up is not for the IOC.
That's right.
But that's what he's thinking.
That's right.
And because all we do, all the good that we do, I should say, is for the Lord. And the betterment of humanity. You made mention of it was a kind of a real quick comment about the scandal in the church and the cracks in the church. And this is what we're doing. We're going to get to a couple more details about that email. But this, as we know, we've talked about, but everybody listening knows, the sex scandals have weakened the church's voice in the public square. And the best example of that is Ireland. And so they rapidly went to approving same-sex marriage and then approving abortion. And the church had no moral the Irish church had no moral standing. But that's true in a lot of certainly the Western churches, Europe, North America. And just look at the Pope's recent, I'm going to put this in a lowercase d, declaration of blessings for same-sex unions, and the response, especially of the African church, to ignore that. And to me, that was righteous. They stood up. The Pope wasn't speaking infallibly. They deeply disagree with it. I'm not saying every one of them, but that was the majority. And I just think that the fact that the weakness of the church needs to be offset, and Pope Benedict wrote this, as you well know, that he didn't say for this particular reason, but that the ladies got to stand up. They've got to get more involved. And the weakness of the church is a reason that you, me, and others in the laity have to speak, have to raise our voices. We need to be heard, because they're not going to listen. A lot of them in the secular world are not going to listen to, and many Catholics are not going to listen to the church hierarchy. So we have to show solidarity, and a lot of this is going to be difficult.
Yeah, man.
If you want to be docile, well, I don't know how you can be. That's twisting or totally misunderstanding Christ's message. But a lot of people think that, and the docility is something that offended Friedrich Nietzsche tremendously. It's one of his big knocks against Christianity, was that thinking that, okay, well, Christ is the Lamb, you got to submit. And it's just a misunderstanding. But, Nietzsche could say to this guy who wrote the email in response to Father Jim, yeah, you're exactly what I want. You're exactly what the communists want. You're exactly what the devil wants, right? Just be quiet. Just be quiet. And you know what? An old friend of mine, long since dead, rest in peace, he used to say, Tommy, our side, you can figure out what our side means, but we'll say Christians, but he said, our side no longer wants to bleed. You were too comfortable.
Yeah.
But let me just, real quickly, just to pull into the rest of that email, what really motivated me to say, listen, let's change the topic, because we'll talk about what we were going to talk about next week. Is your response to my email. And we can't know exactly what the other person's feeling or thinking, because we're not that other person. So you can't know exactly what I was thinking or feeling. But when I read your email, I'm getting little goosebumps now. I said, what a joy to have somebody who's got your back.
Yeah.
There's not that much like that, because the implication of having your back or having someone's back is that either they're waging a good fight, maybe their back is close to against the wall, maybe they're close to being near the edge of the cliff, so to speak. Whatever it is, somebody's doing something that you think is righteous, and you're going in there, and there's nothing like you just double the effect. You go from 1 to 2.
Yeah, you go to more than 2, though, because there's synergy involved in that. When something is so embraced by the Holy Spirit, for one thing, on a spiritual level, or by the sheer nature of putting 2 or 3, with Father Jim leading it off, high levels of emotion or passion towards something, it has been said on the football field, and I've seen it become unraveled, or revealed, I should say, that the like-mindedness of 3 for a good cause has the power of 6, not 3. And 6 has the power of 12. This is not perfect math. And 12 then explodes up to the power of 40, and then on upward. That's what works. That's what's happening. But also in this case, and it's wonderful, I not only I know that you're a humble guy, and I know we like to bust chops, but I know it felt good that you had me have your back. Probably
Exactly.
for a couple of reasons. What's that?
Exactly.
Because you trust me.
Exactly.
You know who I? Yeah, and I trust you. Man, I'm getting emotional here. And we're doing it for Father Jim, who's fighting for Christ, and I'm holding my hands together like prayerful. And as I said myself, they were in front of my chin. And then when I said you, they moved upward towards my eyes. And then when I said Father Jim, they continue to move now to the top of my head. And then I stretched my hands, arms out completely to Jesus Christ our Lord. That's what we're talking about. That's the fight, is that we honor the hierarchy right there. And that's what our priests are not getting. Who is more humble and real and from the dirt, from the earth than Father Jim Hutchins? All he wanted was to know that the men in the group had his back, and 4 showed their name. 4 jumped in. And he did write back to you, and he did write back to me, and I'm sure he wrote back to Chris as well. And I'll say Chris Trey's name.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is a fighter. And that's all he needed. And if that's all he gets, that's the synergy that comes with that group when we stay tight is absolutely, it's a major force. You know, this is all founded upon fear. It's all founded upon loneliness, you know, all this LGBTQ stuff. And Satan is just always walking with deep, deep fear. And there's one thing he fears the most, the atom bomb to Satan, is the Eucharist. And here he is, man. He's getting his laughs. And he really, really feels. I don't know if it's possible for Satan to feel warmth and comfortable. I don't know if that's even possible.
Well, I'm not sure. You know, I thought he was perpetually hot.
Yeah. But if it was,
he doesn't
possible,
like AC.
But if it was possible, he felt it from that guy's email.
You know, that's such a good point. Yeah, it's like who are you in league with?
The guy that bailed out.
Yeah. Who are you in league with?
Legions. Yeah.
That's well. Here, friends. Here's this is the first of Dan's responses. You, and that's in all caps, are inspiring. Inspiring is all caps. You are inspiring, Father Jim, as usual. I am pumping my voice up more than ever now. Keep swinging, Padre. Now, I replied to that, another excellent Duddy vintage. It's nice and ripe. Okay, it's full of juice. It's full of juice, and I just think that you can't do it. To know that you can count on somebody is such a beautiful thing, and I don't know whether maybe I'm more sensitive to it because of being single. I think that's part of it, but just to be able to know that you can count on somebody and somebody's got your back. Really, no matter what, and there's a handful. There's a handful of guys like that, but that, and so when I saw your response, I immediately thought we got to change the topic because I have to share and try to have our listeners understand, those who maybe they don't have somebody in their life like that. I mean that we've talked about the loneliness, alienation, isolation. It's situations like this with this opening ceremony at the Olympics where we can enter into a community. Now we should be in a community anyway with our church, but a lot of people aren't, and especially as there's decreasing participation in church life. There's a great article by David French. I know I sent you and 2 other friends, Jim and Deacon Chuck Kelly from WQPH fame. And it was about manliness and whatnot. But if you want to read it, ladies and gentlemen, it's David French. But he was talking today at another column about, and he's an evangelical Christian, but it was about the difference between orthodoxy and orthopraxy. And the doxy is what you profess when we say or sing the Gloria. That's our doxology, right? That's our profession of what we believe. But orthopraxy, fancy word, praxy meaning praxis, means practical. What do you practice in your life? So would you rather have someone in your life who professes something but doesn't live it?
Right.
Or who lives it and, maybe not as voluble in the profession of this particular, of Christianity?
Good point, man. You read my mind as you're talking. I'm thinking as well. First of all, not to blow smoke back and forth to each other, but what I wrote was minuscule in my writing compared to what you wrote that kicked this whole thing off. All right. So, and I know you're not the kind of guy that's going to read what you wrote, but that's what really fired this thing up. So I was keeping it small and to the point. I got your back. And that's all that it takes, really, honestly, is to someone step up and say, I am with you, and I'm going to prove it to you. And then to keep that rolling. But it really took the docility of Father Jim's heart, his love for Christ, to write that. And then you following with the same docility and love, but you started to activate it for him. And it was your activating of such that stirred the convictions in myself back towards your convictions, and our convictions went even higher. And those convictions, they turned to activation. We're going to become activated over this. You and I have to think about how we're going to get this done. So we're just not talkers. We have to act on what you just said before I started speaking here, because that activation becomes a militia, and a militia will gather up with other militia. And what do we have? We have an army. And we love talking about militia, right, Tom? Coming out of the woods, getting around that campfire, having wounds that they need to lick with pride and just say, yeah, man, look at this, look at that. Yeah, I got this, because we were in the fight. Some will make it back to the fire, some won't make it to the fire. But that's living. That's living. But saying that something is a colossal waste of time, it makes Satan rub his hands together and feels victory for that. That's what we need to be the complete antithesis of. That very sloth, I guess. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But, yeah.
Well, and to Father Jim's credit, he wasn't... His email was not a whining or complaining email.
No. Yeah.
It was a call to action.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what makes... I could see I couldn't even see it really, but even if Father Jim's email was just a complaint and everything's so terrible and look at these, look at the scandal, blasphemy, and all this stuff. It was a call to action, which is classic Father Jim, and of course it should be classic for anybody with the title of father. But then obviously what you and I also mean, and what we talk about, is that should be in the normal course of events for somebody who's calling himself a man. You got, I can imagine, since we're speaking in France, I can just imagine Joan of Arc.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Come on. I'd follow her.
I've thought of her a few times through this process. Being, imagining her on a horse with shield and spear, saying, bring it on, man.
Yeah, this tiny speck.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Oh,
I've thought of her many times, and this without you and I having even spoken about it.
Wow.
But, sometimes if this isn't a calling out, then what's a calling out? I'm looking right now on my laptop at that scene, at that table, and you can talk about it all you want. That is the Last Supper, the mockery of the Last Supper.
Of course.
Hands down, nothing but that. And it's right smack in front of my face, your face. And right now it's on my nightstand in my own master bedroom. This is something that really needs to be addressed. We need to gather some guys up and figure this out. Because we got a closing ceremony coming up, and we have another Olympic coming up, another one, another, and we have sons, and we have daughters.
Exactly. And France once was the eldest daughter of the church. We've talked about that. It's it's certainly not anymore. It's abandoned. She has abandoned her family. She's abandoned her parents. And the hypocrisy in France. You're not allowed. It's against the law to have religious symbols. Can't wear a crucifix or a cross necklace. Can't have the hijab. I don't think you can wear the yarmulke, but I'm not going to say that with total confidence. But of course, it should be outlawed if if the other two are outlawed. But yet they'll allow somebody to make a mockery of what everybody who's a Christian, even Muslims, know that that's the Last Supper.
It's legal.
Well, no, they know that was the Last Supper. And I mean, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, blasted the International Olympic Committee in France for doing that. So the hypocrisy, and they would never do that. They would never make a mockery of of anything Islamic.
Islamic, no way,
never,
not even close. Everybody knows it. They know it.
Exactly.
They've apologized for it.
Yeah.
Phony, stupid apologies.
Thank you.
And it's still sitting in front of us, and here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That was so. This was unplanned, and you did a good job, Danny.
Well, you did a great job, brother.
I threw an audible.
Fired it up.
I threw an audible, and you went right with it.
You threw an audible. You fired it up, man. You started it up. Let's keep it rolling, huh?
Amen.
Let's see what we can. Tom, dead serious, man. Let's keep this rolling. You raised your hand with a good idea. You know what that makes you, right? That makes you're in charge of the committee now. I've remember how many times we've done that in group sessions, right? I got an idea. Oh, that's good. You're in charge of it. Yeah. But I got your back, and you got my back, and we love Father Jim. We have his back, and that's a beautiful thing to celebrate. And we got to keep activated. Got to keep moving our feet.
Right on, brother.
Yeah, that was a great idea. Hey, I guess we're tying this up, right?
We are done.
All right, man. God bless you all. Not yet. Let's say this. Let's stay tuned for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with Peter and Jemmy.
WQPHradio.org. Oh, thank God for this platform. Get messages like this out. Spread the word. Spread the gospel. And Danny, you and I will commit to living the gospel until the next episode, and then the next episode, and next episode.
Yes, sir. We are eternal. Amen. We are eternal.
God bless you, buddy.
Making the right turns. God bless you, Tommy. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th apostle?